Fresh killer.
What up, tribe? I am in conversation with a brother who is a pianist, a rapper, an educator, a music historian, and an Oakland native. He is a Skyline High School graduate and has a bachelor's in music from Xavier University in Louisiana. He has toured with, let us say, Guapale, Too Short, and Miss Lauryn Hill. He is currently teaching at Oakland School of the Arts, and he continues to make good music consistently. Try, please welcome the good brother, Kev Choice.
Thank you.
What's up, man?
Hey, chilling. Enjoying this beautiful day, man. Good to be here with you.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes. Appreciate you taking the time out. I want to talk about the business scene, particularly the Lake Merritt business scene in Oakland with you, and just the Oakland scene, period. But first, man, first. Hey, man, what was it like? What was it like touring with L Boogie, bro? Like, what was that experience?
wow. Man, there's been so much, spoken about Lauryn Hill. Miss Hill is what, I actually, we called her at that time. And she still likes to be referred to as Miss Hill. But number one, it was a blessing, man. At that time in my career, I had been, touring with local artists for sure, but to tour with the artists of that stature and to be able to go around the world, I mean, I feel like we went to over 20 countries. I toured with her to, our first tour was like all through Hawaii. Then I went to Brazil, Japan. Then we did like a European tour. So just to be able to tour around the world with an artist of that stature was just probably one of the most incredible experiences of my career. And what, despite what people may say about her as a person or a professional or whatever, I feel like she's one of the greatest artists of our generation. If we're just looking at pure artistry, and I don't want to say even female MC or women MC, to me, she's one of the best MCs and vocalists of our generation. And to be able to work closely with her to, get a little insight on her process, her creativity, and just her thoughts, and also very, her spiritual, you can't talk about her without talking about her spirituality. And every Grammy award, her acceptance speech was very much spiritual and with purpose. So I learned a lot, and it gave me a lot of confidence to be like, if I can work with her even for that 1 year, then I can do anything that I want in this industry. And it was like, to me, it was like going to school. That was like my doctorate program, like just being underneath her for a year, dealing with a lot of, and it wasn't all, easy. It was definitely challenges, but I feel like those challenges made me stronger. So I appreciated it, and I learned a lot, and it was dope. To me, it was dope. It was one of some of the greatest times of my career.
Absolutely, man. And this was, I think 2007 or something.
Yeah, 2007.
Yeah, man. The Miseducation is one of the greatest works of art.
Exactly. Yeah. We can't never take that away. And I think Unplugged is really unheralded, because if you listen to her lyricism and songwriting, it was so broken down and so vulnerable, but like just on a pure songwriting level, like words, intention, and the messaging behind what she was talking about, I think that went over people's heads still to this day. Like they don't get it. It's some of the greatest work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I saw her rock that. It was her. It was Outkast. It was Jurassic 5. If you remember Jurassic 5.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I think, Goody Mob and Killer Mike, and that was at the joint in Mountain View. It was the amphitheater in Mountain View.
Okay, Shoreline
in Mountain View, and she came out there, just her and her guitar, man, just killed it, spitting them verses until she lost her breath. Like, whoa, people do see Unplugged album for sure.
Yeah, Unplugged was crazy, man. We got to go back to that.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, I work with a lot of transplants. I interact with a lot of transplants, people that come from all over the country to the town, to Oakland. And you know what? I don't know if you've experienced this, but like they ask you, where are you from? And you say, I'm from Oakland. They're like, surprised. Oh my goodness. Like, what are you doing here? Right. And it's there's this notion that Oakland is a town that you pass through, right?
Mm.
And I think that it's perpetuated from within and from outside as well. If I can, there was a song by Raphael Sadiq, "I'm leaving this town." And it's just like, I love my people, this, that, the other, but I got to get up out of the town, right? And I feel like a lot of people, even in inside Oakland, like, you know, you graduate, you go to college. I think a lot of cats don't come back. And I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what makes Oakland a city worth coming back to? You have been all over the world. And for you, what makes Oakland, California a place to be like, I'm coming back and I'm setting up shop here in my city?
Wow, that's a deep question. And, you know, I feel like, you know, after I've, you know, traveled, like you said, I've traveled around the world, going to school in New Orleans, going to school in Illinois, living in Atlanta for a year or so. And I feel like what has brought me back is, number one, our deep connection with, you know, the community and how we value, you know, the everyday people, the everyday person, and the people who aren't being spoken for. Those are the people that we uplift here. Those are the people that we, you know, that are our neighbors that we connect with. Like there's like a certain connection to where you go into a big city like LA or New York or, you know, Atlanta or even Paris. Like there's like a disconnect sometimes from like the people who may not have as much or who not as, you know, high a status, you know, on the ladder. Up here, I feel like there's such a connection with those people. And that's what built this city. You know, this is a blue collar city. This is not LA. This is not San Francisco. It's those neighborhoods that have created so many powerful voices and stories that have resonated around the world. And to this day, you know, a city of only 400,000 people with such an impact worldwide. To me, that's what's kept me here. It's like I like to be amongst the everyday people, and that inspires me to, you know that anytime that there's a social justice movement anywhere in the world, Oakland is going to be a part of it. To know that I can, you know, see people that I grew up with, and we can still have a connection because we've experienced so many different things over the decades, and we can still keep it real with each other. Like, you know, it ain't like, you know, I can see somebody who might be a superstar athlete or a superstar rapper, and out here we just all kind of a family connection. It's not like it's just some other places where people feel like they, you know, superstars or Hollywood, or, you know, they bigger than everybody. Everybody here is on a level playing field. Like you can't have a big head out here. You got to be grounded. You got to be, you know, humble, or you're going to get humbled real quick. So that's the type of people that I like to be around, like this, you know, people that's genuine, people that's real, people that's not too, you know, feel like they're bigger than anyone else. You know, it's showing a lot of love and just that community and social justice, you know, impact. Like we fight for the things that we want to see in the world, and it actually resonates from here all around the world. Going back to Black Panthers, Occupy Oakland, Oscar Grant, like all of that stuff resonated around the world, and that comes from this community. And me as an activist and an artist, that's important to me. That's just important to me.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I love the town very dearly as well. And I explain it to people the exact same. Like Oakland will make you humble.
Yeah, because we don't care, man. We don't care about nothing flat. Like you can be flashy out here, but it's like, okay, it's whatever. Like we'll side on you real quick. You know, we'll say like
way that you can be flashy, you know, flashy by our standards, bro. Like if you flashy by somebody else's standards, I wouldn't like. Let's just say that.
Right, because you're gonna look like a corny. You're gonna look like a cornball. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna look game goofy real quick. Like what? Like what is you trying to do out here?
Man, I didn't realize that until I went to Atlanta. I went to Atlanta for my freshman year in college, bro. And like I thought it was just incidents where I thought that I was fitted and I thought that I was fly. And then just like that means a whole different thing to on the East Coast, from DC to New York to Atlanta, the way they stunt. And I'm just like, snap. And then I got this perspective like, oh yeah, you couldn't do all that in my city. Like,
right.
You couldn't pull up in what you pulling up to. You couldn't like,
yeah.
I would not recommend you ever bring that vehicle, bring that attitude to
Right.
my city. There's a way that you stunt, but not. So it's Oakland's just not. There are flashy towns. Oakland is not that.
Yeah.
Maybe changing though. But
slightly.
right, right. There's a lot of influence. Things are shifting and whatnot. But I love the town. We both love the town. But I oftentimes think about how repressive this city can be, right? Historically, as far as people talk about Oakland and the Bay Area, it's like, oh, it's such a liberal place and all these great things happen. And that's true. People bring up the Black Panthers. Absolutely. But the Black Panthers started in Oakland and thrived in Oakland. But you have to remember the Black Panthers started as a means of resistance to the blatant oppression coming from the Oakland Police Department and the surrounding communities of West Oakland at the time, right? Exactly. And so like, wow, we saw, because you guys aren't, you guys are not giving us justice, right? And so I think about it from a historical standpoint, and then from a contemporary standpoint, had this thing about we had businesses at the lake, we have flea markets, right? And I think about this repressive in terms of Black business, because Black business is revolutionary, right?
Yeah. Black entrepreneurs.
My God, if we owned all the businesses in our community, that would totally disrupt the funnels of money as far as capitalism is concerned. And so there's this thing at the lake. Let me just set it up for people that do not know. So we had the barbecue Becky incident, probably 2017? What was that?
Yeah, it seemed like it was a while ago. That was at least 4 or 5 years ago. That was at least
a while ago, right?
Yeah.
All the cops and people barbecuing at the lake. The Black Oakland stood up like, hell no, like not in the town. And so I think from that, there was kind of, the lake was always popping, but then from that came Black at the Lake, and people started to set up shop, flea markets, things like that at the lake on weekends. Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the beginning of spring of this year, it just really went into overdrive. And we had so many businesses, Black businesses, almost all Black businesses set up at the lake. It had music and all types of things, all type of entrepreneurship. I saw it as such a beautiful thing. In late March, I did a video on it, and there was people selling honey, sisters selling refrigerator magnets, sisters selling tacos. It was just like you name
everything.
There was a business for it. After I did that video, the very next week, it had been, I don't want to say shut down, but reduced very considerably. I would say over 50 to 75% of the businesses that were there the weekend that I filmed were not there. And that is because they had the fire department. You couldn't double park, and they were, I would say, harassing some of the vendors. You can't be here, and so on and so forth. And they also had a media campaign, and people just like, oh, people double parked in front of my house and all of this, right? And this is me. I'm trying to be objective, but I think you can see where I stand on the issue. But first, before I share my opinions on them, reducing it and them cracking down on businesses at the lake, I want to know how you feel about it from your perspective, and what do you think is the future for these Black vendors at Lake Merritt?
Yeah, man, that's deep, man. Because I mean, number one, that's kind of the area that I grew up in mostly in my life. My early part of my life, I was in East Oakland, but then like junior high school, I was always around the lake. So a lot of my activity in Oakland has been centered around that. And historically, there's always been a movement of, suppression around Black engagement at the lake. When I was in high school, they came with the no cruising zone.
Talk about it.
Literally, there was an ordinance to where you couldn't, because we used to just ride around the lake. On the Sunday, just people just riding around, people pulling up somewhere, but really just continually riding around. So they literally,
a lot of guy meets girl activity, right?
Yeah. But it would be centered around this stretch too, this lakeshore stretch, kind of between MacArthur and all the way down to, First Ave or East 14th, I should say. But they came with the no cruising zone to where you kind of had to, if you was caught cruising around there more than once, police could pull you over and give you a ticket. So here we are, maybe 20, 30 years later. And that really shut down a lot of Black engagement at the lake for a long time. Like it used to be like every weekend, people out here kicking it, barbecuing, just hanging out, socializing, popping at each other, doing what we do. So that was like an early inclination of what we're seeing right now. Like you said, after barbecue Becky and people like, we're gonna reclaim the lake. It was almost like we're gonna reclaim it from 20 years ago when we stopped coming. It's like, we're gonna start coming back again. And the vendors started popping up, and like you said, seeing the beauty of the Black entrepreneurship, Black arts, Black creatives, and also just people just hanging out and kicking it as well, along with the vendors, that created a certain energy. Now, the opposition to that energy, or to this, coming from these lakeshore neighbors who are a very powerful political community engagement pack. There's actually organizations. They have meetings. They mobilize. They go to Park and Rec's meetings and complain vehemently, like complainer after complainer, talking points, email city council members. 1200 Lakeshore has a whole organization that, put in a noise ordinance to where, you can't play percussion a certain, decibel, so there's a very organized community of members of neighbors, I should say, who aren't in support of, Black businesses, Black people being out there and complain about, this and that. But so what I've done, or, what it's like, well, how do we counter that? Because I'm sorry.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So how do we counter that? There should be nothing against the law about, people gathering at the lake, people from this city, from this community, utilizing a public space, and while there are, certain rules and regulations, like, the selling of alcohol, the selling of cannabis, those things, maybe there needs to be some type of rules or regulations around that. But there's so many other spaces in the city where people are allowed to sell goods or have, farmers markets. And why shouldn't this be allowed for this Black Vendors Association? So I think, and it's really just about, us organizing just like those neighbors do, standing up for each other, standing up for that space, which has been happening. As you can see now, the streets are kind of blocked off and they're allowing certain vendors to be in a certain area, but which is a pilot program. It's not something that is going to be, it has to be continued to be, reinstated and refunded, saying. So our council member is in support of that, but she's looking for ideas. And also Parks and Recs is that department is, I'm gonna just keep it 100. They're understaffed and they don't have enough support to even, to deal with, the pressure from the neighbors, and also to help provide space for these vendors in a way that's safe for the community and is supported by the community. So it takes a little bit of organization. It takes us standing up for our spaces, like, because we deserve and we should be able to be out in these spaces. And it's definitely a conversation that is taking a lot of, energy recently, and we just got to keep standing up for that space. And also what politicians will tell you is that they want to be able to implement that at other parks and other spaces in the city, because there's a lot of energy towards this one space. But what about, Arroyo Park, or what about Mosswood Park, or what about San Antonio Park? They want to be able to spread it out so that there's not as much attraction and energy in this one space that they can't really, control. And also to get engagement in some of the other parks in Oakland as well. So that's a lot of the conversation. But it just takes organization and standing up. Like, we got to mobilize and keep fighting for what we want to see there, and make sure that, it's not being suppressed by just some little, are these white gentrifying neighbors out there.
Yeah, I was very displeased. Okay, so I understand it. I have a homeboy who lives by the lake, and I understand how, if you live there and you pay some exorbitant rent there, and it's just like a party that to you may seem out of control at times. I understand that, but I didn't understand the when I say repressive, I mean Oakland is just like just destroyed. When it's black people getting together, it's just like no, complete destruction. And just the
Yeah.
pain and our news affiliates, the way they were getting everybody that was against it. And I was just like, wait, hold on, hold up. Yo, you could clean this up, right? Like people was just selling. People shouldn't be able to just sell shots of alcohol in their vendors. Like people should be, regulated and whatnot if people aren't properly disposing of their grease, right? And you have birds there and stuff like, okay, for sure, I get it. You can have people regulating these things, right? But
permits.
Yeah, permits, like little cheap, something cheap, like, okay, I'm gonna put in $10, I'm gonna do my thing or whatever, so I can make more money. Like the Ashby flea market, for example, like they have to get permits or whatever, but it's still vibrant, it's still black. Still, anybody can go out there, you pay your permit fee, and then you hustle, you make your money. And I was just displeased that people didn't see it as a great thing. When we have a population that's been so impacted by unemployment and homelessness and violence and all of these things, why couldn't people just respect it? And when I say people, I mean those living around the lake and even some of our politicians just accept it as something that was super positive. Because I was just like, yo, this is dope. This is incredible.
Yeah, man, it's the age old concern of anti-black sentiment, anti-black, values in America in general. Saying anytime there's anything that's where we want to claim our space or claim our joy or claim our individuality, support our community, support our entrepreneurs and businesses. I mean, it goes back. There's such a highlight on Tulsa right now. Like, look, look what happened when they had a Black Wall Street. Like they literally, like those morals and values are still very present in our society, whether people want to admit it or feel like, oh, we're, you got Black Lives Matter in every front yard in the Oakland Hills, but are they really down here standing with us when we need them? Or are they really
Black Lives Matter? Keep them over there. Keep those Black lives in the flatlands. They matter. Keep them away from me though.
Right. Yeah. But I got my sign in the yard, but I ain't gonna support y'all when it comes down to these city policies or, but yeah, Black Lives Matter. I don't want, so it's, people got to really, be, mindful of what they're, what values they're representing in their day-to-day life. Like, even these neighbors around here think that, oh, I can move to cool Oakland. It's a great town, but, oh, the music is too loud, or, oh, there's too many people gathering. Like, why did you move here? Like, why did you move in the area? And I tell the city council all the time, I wouldn't move to New Orleans and be like, you know what? I don't want them marching down my street with those instruments. So I wouldn't move to, Memphis and be like, the blues that they're playing on Beale Street is too loud. Like this is a part of our culture. This is a part of our existence as a Black community, which is being, oppressed, which is being driven out, which, we can look at the numbers and the percentages. When we grow up, it was like 40 to 50% to where now maybe it's in the 20s, and continuing to dwindle. So we're being forced out, we're being oppressed, our voices are being silenced in all these ways. We just got to keep standing up for, for our values and our communities and for our people. And this is just one of those, this is like the ground zero right now. And if losing this battle could have effects across the whole city. So we just got to keep standing up.
Right. Yeah.
And the vendors need to get organized. That's the other thing too. Like like you said, the Panthers got organized because they was tired of seeing police, brutality. They was tired of, people, getting beat, getting killed. And they was like, you know what, enough is enough.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's a consistent thing in our city. You talked about the lake being popping back in the day. I was a little bit younger at the time, but I was able to rock with my older brother. I just never forget how beautiful and how black the lake was on Sundays.
Yeah.
Every Sunday,
exactly.
7th grade, like nothing like 5th or 6th grade, like back when they filmed a little scene from Poetic Justice.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a part of our fabric. That's a part of the fabric of our community.
And then I remember it culminated with Festival at the Lake. And
the Festival at the Lake.
Festival at the Lake. it brought so much joy and vibrancy to the Black Bay Area period. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember one year they had riots and they were just like, no more. And then I think they ultimately brought it back in like October, some old off-brand date that like they basically killed it and then they brought it back and killed it slowly. And then I remember, do you remember Kari Hama at Mosswood?
Yeah, Harjama, yeah.
In Mosswood Park, same thing. Young Black people on Memorial Day. And it was I was old enough to participate in that, boy. I love that. And
yeah, all of that, man.
you know, instead of having the police work with the community, get people together, people that are doing too much, get them out of here, regulated, modified, and all that, they were just like, shut the whole thing down, right?
Yeah.
That ticked me off.
That's why we need community policing, or people in the community, you know, community ambassadors, people that can be trusted, people that, you know how to, you know, interact, you know, because I was at that riot at the lake, and that was really like, yeah, there was some things going on in the crowd that was getting out of hand.
Right.
And instead of like learning how to diffuse that situation, the police started tear gassing everybody. And then everybody was like, you know what? F this, they tear gassing, we're gonna break all these windows. And that's that's kind of what led to that.
Very antagonistic, right?
Yeah. Instead of, you know, defusing or helping to, you know, solve a situation, or, you know, make a situation more safe, they instigated it.
Right. I can just remember when I was coming into myself, you know, 20, 21 years old, Oakland was on punishment. Like the whole city, you could have no hip hop parties.
Right.
That was a real thing. They put the whole city of Oakland on punishment. It was like, you guys can't, like, we are just children, right?
Was that after the Hot Boys? Wait, was that the?
It was some years after that, and you're talking about that infamous Hot Boys concert at the Oracle Arena, was getting thrown from the balcony and all that type of stuff. There were like no hip hop shows. Then there were like no hip hop shows in Oakland, and then later on, they were just like, well, no hip hop parties or clubs that play hip hop in the city. They put the whole city on punishment. It's like, bro, how can you do this? So instead of, once again, the people that are doing too much, people that are breaking the law, handle the people that are breaking the law, right? But let the mass majority of people, we come to kick it, we come to party, you know, we come to meet people and all that, right? And like shut the whole thing down. And my goodness, it's only when it comes to Black people getting together. Do you think that you can get away with that? And do you take that approach? And that's the part of my city that is just, when you go to New Orleans, it is not that way. And I'm not saying New Orleans doesn't have problems. When you go to Atlanta, it is not that way. There's a space for Blackness, and there's a space for creativity, and just a space for Black people to get together and kick it. Just one more story. My freshman year, I remember being in Atlanta, and we were at an AUC. We were outside hanging out. Police pull up. So I was like, oh, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, they about to shut it down. We about to have to go in the house. Police just kind of rolled by, looked, and just kept going. And if we like 20, 25 deep. And I was like, oh my God, I felt like I was from the South and we were in some kind of promised land. What I mean by that is, I was like, oh my God. In my city, the police would have been able to call backup every day.
They would have shut it all down.
Right? All right, I said one more story. I got another story. I was in New Orleans. This was maybe around 2008. And I was speeding. I was in a rental. I was speeding. And police pull up on side me. The police officer's a brother. He said, hey, slow down, little daddy. I was like, oh, snap. My bad. He was just like, yeah. And then he just, he turned off. And I was just like, oh my God. First off, in my city, that police officer wouldn't have been Black.
Right.
And in my city, it would at the very least, he would have pulled me over. But like that interaction, like, hey, slow down, little daddy. And oh my God. And so I think that we don't, like, Oakland is just, when it comes to Black people thriving and creating and doing their thing, has a history of being very, very, very repressive. And it just ticks me off, Kev.
Yeah, it's tough, you know, and it's also a part of, you know, our perseverance. Like, you know, this and we continue to, like I say, in every iteration of those oppressive regimes, whether it's police, whether it's government, whether it's even the educational system out here. You know, we're continuing to push forward and push against it, which honestly does make us unique. Because even as much as, you know, maybe those police down south didn't, you know, they I guess they didn't mess with you as well. Like there's almost such a separation. Like they don't have the same activist mentality that we have out here in other areas. And that's why maybe the police and these systems are so intimidated by us as Black people, because they know the power and they know the, you know, the amount of impact that we have when we come together, when we're doing things, when we're, you know, making change and making effect in our communities. So it's every situation is different. Every city is different. The South is a whole different thing. The Midwest, that's a whole, you know, they got their whole, it's also very segregated in these places as well. Like to where out here, our neighbors are very multicultural from all around the world. You know, you got one block where it might be Black, Latino. The next block is white people up the street. Like, so it's so much diversity out here that also, you know, makes it to where they try to control us a little bit more, because they know we right next to them. You know what I'm saying? We right there with them in every space of our community a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, oh, for sure. Do you think when you look at the future of Black vendors at the lake, do you look at it as a bright future, or do you how do you look at it, the future of Black?
You know what I mean? Like I said, I think that's one area that we need to focus on. I feel like the city is going to definitely try to not keep it under control, to make sure that it just doesn't get to where it's too much of a issue for the parks and recs, number one, the neighbors, number two, and just that whole community. I think they'll be able to stay for a while, as long as they have a good model, they're organized, they have good leadership. And then there's going to have to be some things put in place, like, you know, proper permitting, a process of who can be out there, what type of things can be out there, and also there has to be a look at, all of this amount of money being spent on blocking streets, police, presence, because I don't think no one really wants that. I don't think the vendors want it, the city doesn't want it. Like that was just a response to a lot of pressure from the community. So I think they're gonna continue to look at that area, but also try to activate other areas. They're gonna try to maybe activate a market in, Oscar Grand Plaza, maybe activate something at, another part of East Oakland or on the other side of the lake. Like, I think they want to try to spread it out so it's a little more controlled. So there'll be a congregation of, Black vendors here. Maybe there's some in other areas. Maybe there's some in deeper East. Maybe there's some, Black cultural zone. So it's going to be a little bit of keeping that cool, keeping that controlled, and also trying to spread it around the city.
All right, for sure, man. Hey, so speaking about Black business, I want to change gears just a little bit. You work with young people. I work with young people as well. And I was wondering, Black business is revolutionary. I'm going to say that again. What do you think needs to be done in order to get our young folk who may be majoring in business, they have a mindset, they work hard, to invest in the Black community as opposed to investing in a like in a capitalistic corporation, right? So for example, we need banks in our communities, we need grocery stores, we need dry cleaners, we need all of these things, right? So how do we get our business-minded people to say straight up, I'm gonna open up a dry cleaner, I'm gonna open up a grocery store, as opposed to saying, I want to work for Safeway Corporate, or I want to work for Bank of America. How do we get that shift to happen and us to invest in our own communities?
Well, I think, it starts off with, starting young, being an educator. I work with mainly middle school and high school right now. And, looking at the programs that they're offered, there's not a lot of, programs that are educating, especially, students of color, or on how to become, young Black entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs of color. So implementing, number one, programs that talk about, a class that's about business, about entrepreneurship, about, starting your own business. Maybe not just a business class, because if you take a normal business class, it's going to be that how to, be a business person in corporate America type of, class, but not like a entrepreneurship class, which is talking to you about how to start your own business. And also, there needs to be examples, like there needs to be models of how it's done. Like kids need to see it, to believe in it, or somebody's got to really like encourage them, like, yo, this is possible. This is how you do this. This is how it's been done. Or just give them the like I said, the empowerment to create their own ideas. And it starts in the classroom and with, having role models and people that they can see actually did it. Because of course, if I'm like, a kid and I'm on social media and I'm seeing like, okay, Bill Gates or, Elon Musk, like these are the people that are, these billionaires who are, propped up in society, or all these, superstars, like that's what they're going to gravitate towards, like wanting to be like, the things that they can see. So there just needs to be more, local level business, models that they can look up to, who can tell them how to do it, talk about the process, create internships, like things like that, to where you're really engaging with people in your community who look like you, who came from your background, and can kind of show you the possibilities, you know what I'm saying? So it takes a little bit of, implementation in the school system, in the school structure, how they're educating, and also like a lot of community engagement. Like our schools need to be more involved in what is happening in the actual community. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like just like with me and OSA, like we're trying to make sure we're bringing in artists from the community. We're trying to make sure we're having, workshops and lectures, bringing in guest performers, guest speakers who are actually people who are doing the things that these kids might want to do when they graduate or when they become professionals. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of giving you that spark and that idea that, okay, this is somebody who looks like me, who did that, and that's how they did it. And okay, maybe I can do something similar.
Mm-hmm. You think social media is helping in terms of developing young entrepreneurs? Because I know a lot of, they know about branding now. They know how to create their brand, mm-hmm. stuff like that. And I was wondering, and they are into like selling their products, whatever it may be. It's easier. You have direct relation to direct contact with the consumer. Mm-hmm. Do you think that social media is more helpful in terms of the younger generation, or do you think that it's more detrimental?
I actually think it is helpful. I mean, because like you said, they're utilizing it in certain ways we didn't have access to. I mean, even me as an artist, like there was no way for me to put my music out or, for me to get my music heard without being on a record label. Like, but I have students who got, million, hundreds of thousand views, or, songs on SoundCloud or Bandcamp or, Spotify. Like, they have a way to connect with the audience, with their art, with their, their music. And I'm pretty sure that translates into other areas, of business. If you have I know a lot of, students are doing things to where they're connecting with, their audience through social media. And I feel like we have to adapt. That's just a sign of the time. And it can be useful. It can be beneficial for any business or any entrepreneur, especially the youth who know how to engage in, TikTok, whether that is, or whatever, Snapchat was popular for a while, or, whatever social media tools that they have, they know how to use them to connect with people. And that translates to business as well.
For sure, man. So I want to enter your realm, which is the realm of music, man. And I want you to just disagree with me at any point. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm just a person with a lot of opinions that grew up in a town. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. So about a month or so ago, we lost Humpty Hump, aka Shock G.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. It got me thinking about the open childhood and about Digital Underground and
I get my charge.
It's all good. Dangerous Dame. We had Rapping Ron and Diddley Dog. We had
rest in peace.
We had Seagram, rest in peace. We had so many support. We had so many artists. We had the whole Banks sound, Pooh Man. We had so many artists.
The Delinquents.
Delinquents. Absolutely, man. Can't forget about Drew Down, the Loonies.
All
those folk coming out of the town, right? Hammer, right?
Hammer. Yep.
Bro, the town fell off. This is me talking. I wanna know. I feel like the town fell off. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you think that the town fell off in a major way? Because I'm looking at all these cities making noise on the hip hop scene with young hip hop artists, and I don't see Oakland or a young lion from the Bay Area really popping off right now. So I want to know, do you think that fall off? And if so, what do you think contributed to this fall off?
Well, I mean, number one, I mean, I know I did definitely, coming up in the 90s and, early 2000s. That was kind of like a golden era of Bay Area music. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if it'll be hard to duplicate that or to reach that status because we had so many different artists. We had labels, we had different styles. You had the, that ain't even talking about the Hyro Cats or the, Hobo Junctions or the Bums or the Sway and Tex or the,
shout out to the
cool, So it was the street. We had the street rappers, the street culture. We had the more kind of hip hop influenced. We used to call us backpackers. We was the backpackers because we used to have our backpack everywhere. And it was a part of our lifestyle, back then. Like it was ciphers everywhere. It was graffiti artists, like that was such a heavy culture, music and hip hop at that time. So there's definitely been a shift, because then it was like the hyphy era, and there was a lot of artists in the hyphy era that were making a name for themselves, locally and nationwide. Like that was the thing, but it shifted the culture from really more focusing on the culture of what we would call hip hop, like really like being engaged as an MC, a DJ, a dancer, a graffiti artist. It took it into a more like a street thing, which that's just the Bay, that's just the town. And what I'm seeing right now in Bay Area, especially if we're talking about Oakland, it's really just a reflection of what's kind of happening with these youth in the streets. Like it's not as much about like, and I'm not saying everybody, but it's really more driven by the street culture of the youth. It's still kind of centered around, like the music that I'm hearing, sitting around like, sideshow activity, centered around street activity. So the kids that's really popping is kind of on that level, which doesn't really give them, they haven't popped off in a lot of national recognition for that sound or for that vibe, like as where, Too Short was able to do it, because he was also diverse in some of the things, and he made certain songs that resonated, maybe with radio or clubs. Like I feel like right now these kids, like we don't really care about nothing. We just trying to make records for the streets that's representative of our neighborhood or what we're going through. Not as much concerned about you ain't got a label in your ear like, okay, we need something for the charts or we want you to tour around the world. It's really like we in our little studios, we in our bedrooms, we in the hood, we making music that's really reflective of this community and this aesthetic, which is some real street shit. Like if you look at people like All Black or Offset Jim, or like they dope artists, but it's reflective of what they're living. And then you got even younger cats just representing just deep kind of street culture. And it's not that it's not that it's bad or good. I don't want to, because I'm a OG to them, so I don't want to knock what they're doing. It's just a matter of, is that going to get you nationwide or worldwide, acclaim or recognition for the type of music that we making right now?
All right, well,
it's harder out here because it's not as much support for it, as back in the day. It was a little more support for independent artists out here.
So that grimy stuff is popping though, Kev. Like that drill scene in Chicago is popping. New York got their drill scene.
That's true.
Rappers out of Jacksonville, bro. Jacksonville, Florida, bro. Dallas is on. Dallas rappers coming out of there. Baton Rouge is super hot. You know what I mean? Baton Rouge.
But then we do got some cats like, who I like, this cat Capello. He's doing really well. I think he called him Capello or something. I might be saying his name wrong. But he there's some cats that are able to do it, you know, having that street appeal, but also having, you know, an international, a worldwide or a national appeal as well. You know, and yeah, there are, you know, little scenes around the country, like you were stating, that kind of make it with that street sound. And, you know, they usually got like a big label behind them, somebody that's putting a push behind them to get them to that national level. You know what I'm saying?
So you think, and just to finish that thought, I'm just like, yo, the Bay, like, anyway, like, you know, I know we got guys still rapping. We got young dudes in the trenches that are really hyenas, really doing their thing. But it's just like,
sure.
My goodness, like, it could be because they don't get the radio play. There was
right.
Jukebox. I think a lot of people would order their own video on a thing called the Jukebox, music television you control back in the day. MC, and there was the radio. The radio supported the local artists back. That's definitely not happening right now. I was listening to the radio, like MI in Atlanta, like oh my God, like it's interesting. I mean, it's infuriating how we don't support our local talent on the radio. But do you also think, you brought up the point about the labels, that we need a stronger label influence in the Bay? And like, why have the labels all of a sudden been like, okay, we're gone? Like what?
Yeah, it's labels, but it's just also just the infrastructure, you know, because it's publicists, it's booking agents, you know, it's marketing, and, you know, PR, it's a whole team. Like the label is really like a house of one, and even the label structure is dying as it was compared to, you know, 20 or 30 years ago. Most artists are doing things independently and maybe signing with a label for distribution. And we do have one of the most biggest independent kind of hip hop labels, Empire, which is based here in the Bay Area. And a lot of artists are, you know, finding some success from working with them. And they are able to, you know, help boost the recognition nationally of a lot of Bay Area and local artists. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I feel like there's a lot of talent here, but it's like getting the exposure and doing things, you know, also just working together, you know, learning how to, a lot of those other areas, like those artists, like maybe there's a bigger artist who'll bring up a younger artist. And that's kind of how they get known, you know what I'm saying? And like that has to happen out here as well. We got to, you know, be able to support each other, be able to, you know, collaborate with each other, you know, go on the road with each other. Like those are the type of things that the artists out here. I'm sorry.
I got
my
you.
bad. My phone looked like it's dying too, but that's the type of things that I encourage these young artists to do, is like, you know, collaborate, you know, get outside of the town, you know, do things with, you know, in other areas, and think about, you know, a bigger picture of music. You know, it's such a musically diverse area. Hopefully the music that's being made can reflect that, utilizing live instrumentation, you know, working with some of the, you know, the great up and coming producers out here. Like you got to really think of what can set yourself apart from just another cat that's in the hood just rapping. Like you got to really look at it as a business and it's a craft. Like being dedicated to the craft of being an artist, a rapper, producer, whatever it is, like being dedicated to the craft of it. That's when we'll see, you know, a difference.
For sure, man. Respect it. I'm gonna wind this thing on down. I only have a few more questions. I appreciate your time. Now, before you brought up hyphy, man, you brought up the hyphy music, man. I'm gonna spit it, you know, from my perspective, bro. Like I was very big on mob music. I was very hieroglyphic sound as well, and I was not a huge fan of the hyphy music era, and that did a lot to displace a lot of a lot of Bay Area rappers in general, because I felt like it was like a flare up. I didn't feel like that was deeply rooted in who we were. I thought it was the struggle. I thought it promoted like ecstasy. It just made, it was so different from all the things that preceded it. And I felt like once that kind of fizzled out, it was just like, okay, who are we? We kind of had a lack of identity. It's not me hating, because I was in college. I was in prime partying time when the hyphy era was popping. And I was just like, what is happening, bro? And I feel like we covered, because that was such like a oh, that was such a flare up. You know what I'm saying? Like with my music, it was like Shorty B and Ant Banks and you know,
Mm-hmm.
40 and a click and all of that stuff for years and years and years, building up to
Right.
that sound that was authentically Bay. And then the
Mm-hmm.
hype era was like 2 years, bro, and it was done, right? And I feel like we've been confused ever since.
You know what? I feel like it depends on who you ask. You know, I feel like it depends on who you ask. Because I'm almost feeling like some people will be like, hyphy never died. Like it's still, because hyphy was more than just the music. It was the culture. Like you said, it was a party culture. It was the, you know, the drug culture. It was the music. It was the way the kind of, you know, the kids related, or the youth. You know, I don't want to call them kids. You know, it was the way the youth related during that time to what they were going through. And that aesthetic is still slightly present. You know, it's evolved for sure. But you know, the town is still high in a lot of ways. You know, the base is it's evolved in another iteration, you know what I'm saying? But it's that aesthetic, that energy. If you look at the way kids dance, or the youth dance, or the way, you know, they dress, or the way that you go to their parties, like that's still, and those songs still resonate,
Sure.
you know, with those youth as well. So it was a passing, you know, I don't want to call, it wasn't a fad. It was just a passing era in hip hop culture, in a Bay Area culture, that actually resonated nationwide. Like people, you know, writers, journalists, you know, artists on a nationwide level were like, okay, the Bay got something going on with this hyphy stuff. That was a period, that's an area. It's maybe for a while we got too caught up in it, in the word, in the description, and what it is. And it took a little while to break that stigma, you know, because it also, honestly, it intimidated a lot of people. It wasn't something that you could put in a box or a commercial, you know. So like it probably scared a lot of mainstream industry and America, you know what I'm saying, to be like, I don't know about that, because it's kind of out of control. Like that's what, you know, hyphy was, you know, that was that era and that period. But I feel like it's still, there's like, you know, remnants of that still present in Bay Area culture for sure.
Were you a fan of the hyphy, kid?
Was I feel like you know, people like Rick Rock, you know, Trackers a Million, Trackademics, like those producers, like that was the sound that, it was very unique, very creative, and it was something different. It was a you know, a descendant of the mob music, as far as like being synth driven, heavy 808, heavy drum driven. And if you think about 808s and drums and crazy sounds, that is still very prevalent in a lot of music today, in a different iteration. But nah, I appreciated it. I saw what it was. I didn't try to get caught up in it, because I wasn't really, you know, at that time I was, you know, touring with different artists. I was touring with like reggae artists, soul artists, you know, and Guapale. Like even Guapale, you know, Closer to My Dreams, some people feel like that's the hyphy anthem.
Like I feel like that's bombed out. I felt that thing slap. Like
right.
Slaps, bro.
So that's like super soulful, like, you know. And, you know, shout out Ev Live, you know, the cat who made, you know, Zion I, you know, that has songs like Don't Lose Your Head, and, you know, songs with, you know, Mr. Fab, Too Short. And, you know, those were dope songs, you know, and they still, you know, when I see them perform, and when I, you know, perform with them, those songs still resonate, you know, to this day.
For sure, brother. Yo, what's next? What's next for Kev, man? What's next for Mr. Choice?
Man, just, you know, staying involved in this music, you know, working on different projects. I got some cool things happening. Got a project I'll probably drop in the middle of summer, like July, kind of talking about, you know, Black men relationships. And, you know, that's a whole nother episode about the experience of dating in the Bay Area as a Black man, and some of the stigmas and some of the issues, and just being honest about some of the things that I've went through. And, you know, and so that's kind of one project I'm working on. And then some other, you know, projects with my instrumental group, with my jazz group, Black London, and my trio. Also a big project with a kind of more on a symphony thing that I've been working on, coming out soon. So, yeah, just doing events. You know, I got an event called Black Music Matters happening at the Lake, you know, June 26th. Just staying busy with all of the, you know, creative and just, you know, community as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Certainly appreciate your time. How can we follow you, support you, subscribe? Where do we find you online?
Definitely. You can start. I know we on the YouTube, Kev Choice TV. Follow all of the videos that I post anywhere online. At Kev Choice on IG, Twitter, Facebook, KevChoiceMusic.com as well. For like some of my bigger events. So follow the website and make sure to follow me on Spotify. Check out my page. I got playlists and things like that. Kev Choice. All of my music is on Spotify, iTunes, all of those places. Tidal. Make sure you check me out.
Yeah, for sure, man. I certainly, man, I appreciate your time, man, and I honor everything that you've done in the town, staying deeply rooted, man, and spreading that knowledge to the younger generation, man, while still creating new stuff. That's real tough, but somehow you're able to do it all, man. And the town is a much better place with Mr. Kev in it and representing it.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me, man. Great conversation. Great conversation.
Yes, indeed. So that's what's up. I tried, man. We've done it again. Don't forget, subscribe to the tribe. Like this, drop a comment. Until next time, peace, tribe. And love.